Hi, Maciel here. I want to talk a little bit about Passover. Now, bear with me, I'm not Jewish, but I do know a little bit about symbology, so I'd like to talk about the symbolism of Passover. As you recall, the story starts where Egypt has the Hebrews enslaved, and they want the Hebrews want they want their freedom. They want to get the hell out of Egypt. So Moses goes to God, and God says if they don't agree, then God's going to come down and kill all the firstborn children of the Egyptians. You know, good Old Testament kinds of blood and gore. Everybody likes that, right? Yeah, right. So, but God tells Moses so that the angel of death that he's sending passes over the Hebrew houses. They are to take their best lamb and to sacrifice it, and to take the blood of the sacrificial lamb and paint it on the doorpost in the lintel of their homes. That way the angel of death will pass over their home. So that happens, and so here's what we need to understand about these odd stories. You know, they just seem so strange. All of the characters, all of the actions, everything about the story describes something in us. Taken all together, they describe some kind of a psychological, spiritual matrix through which we play out the drama of our own inner lives. So, what are the Hebrews? They symbolize our desire for freedom and our thoughts of God, our spiritual life. Who are the Egyptians? They are our material-minded thoughts. They are the ones that want everything set in stone. They want absolute authority. They want to be able to tell everything in our lives what to do, right? So now we can see why that God would want to kill all the first fruits of that kind of mentality, which means just take the top right off of that, and why God would want to preserve this. And let's be clear, when we talk about God in this context now, we're talking about the God of our own being. It's like our own inner spirit, our own spiritual guide. The higher part of ourself is directing all of this action. It's prompting us to get rid of the materialistic thoughts that we have, those thoughts that regard everything that we see and sense with our physical senses as being the ultimate reality. That's got to go. Those have to be killed off. And the thoughts that long for freedom, and the thoughts that are that part of our spirit that wants to find the promised land and will do anything and put up with anything to get to it, that's what needs to be fostered. That's what needs to be enlivened. That's what needs to be promoted. So that's what we're looking at in the Passover story. We're looking at a regeneration, a rebirth, a death, and a getting out of Dodge towards the promised land. And then what's the promised land? That's the land where that's not a physical place. That is a state of consciousness where we look out at the world and we see that the life in the world is the same life that is within us. Just as Dylan Thomas said in his poem, he said, the force that through the green fuse drives the flower drives my green age. He must have been sitting there on the grass one day and had a mystical moment, and he realized that the life that was all around him was also the life in him, that there was no difference between that life and his life. That's a mystical experience. That's what we want, because that mystical experience will transform you. It is transformative. So what better thing to do than to go for that, to go for the experience? And it's pretty easy. Jesus said it was right at hand. He said we don't have to go spend years and years in the monastery or reading a pile of books. It's all right within us. The kingdom of heaven is within us. And in Christian symbolic language, the kingdom of heaven is the same thing that yogis talk about when they talk about the non-dual state. It is a field of complete unity where there is no time and no space. All of that talk about what the New Jerusalem looks like, the dimensions and golden streets and all of that stuff, that's all symbolic language. It's talking about a state of consciousness that we achieve when we push past and through the limited or enslaved part of us that's enslaved by our senses. And we begin to look at the world as though it were painted on top of a reality that's right behind the world. You see, right behind what we see is this enormous, spacious, intensely aware something. We don't even know what to call it. Some people call it the field. Some people call it the non-dual consciousness. And in Christian mystical terms, it is the kingdom of heaven. That's what we're striving for. That's where we want to get to. Not that we can get out, so we can get out of the world, but so that our lives in the world can be more joyous, more alive, more vital, more connected, where we can be more connected with each other and connected with God instead of feeling separate from God. But most importantly, that we can feel connected with ourselves, that there's no part of us that's split off. Like in shamanism, they talk about a fragmented soul. No, we don't want that. We want a soul that's put together. That's why we do the spiritual work. And it's all laid out in the mystical teachings that should be studying. Get on it. Look past the world of appearances. Go within and read about how to interpret symbols and watch these videos. I talk about symbols all the time. There's much more to this thing, especially what is known as Christianity. They've done really weird things with that. So we want to reclaim that. We want to get into the heart of it, because the heart of every religion is the mystical part of the religion. And for us as Christians, if you want to call yourself a Christian, that is the same experience that the Sufis have, that the Muslims have, that the Buddhists have, the Tibetans, all of them, everybody. All the paths lead up the same mountain, and at the summit of that mountain, all those paths disappear. And there you all are, right there at the top. So, good luck. Take the time, get into it, sacrifice some of the short-term, conveniences and pleasures and whatever, and do the work. Do the work. Get in. Go inside. All right? Okay. So good luck and see you next time.